This is Rabbit Allen. I'm here with another amazing episode. We are interviewing Coral from here in Tennessee. They're going to be talking about their life, what got them into everything that is what they do. And here they are, and they're going to explain everything about themselves, okay?
Everything?
Just little details, okay? Start, how old are you?
Huh?
How old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
I am 28.
28.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will be 29 in August. I'm a little baby, yeah.
That's nice. I am 35.
35, cool. That's
When did you start? When did you start in a shop?
When did I start in a shop? That's actually an interesting question. So I am actually freshly in a shop. I have done most of my work kind of off doing my own little thing for the last 6 years. And I started at the shop that I work at now in January. So yeah, I had a lot of self-exploration leading up to my time in a shop, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually avoided it for a really long time because I felt like I didn't want to be creatively stifled, you know?
Yeah, I got that. You're 28, just freshly in. You said you've been dabbling with it for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first draw to all this? Do you even remember what made you want to do this?
Yeah, I was enamored with piercing, especially ever since I was a young kid. I remember being 8, 9 years old, trying to pierce my own ear in the bathroom with safety pins and shit. And then I remember, I was 12 years old. I got my first industrial bar. It's the same bar that's in there to this day. I've held on to this thing for a long time. I'll probably die with it in my ear.
My first piercing anymore. Mine was a lip, and it's fine.
Yeah. I will die with this in my ear. I love this piece so much. It's just it's the beginning of everything. It feels like, and I think the number one thing that drew me into any capacity, the community, first and foremost, was definitely suspension.
Okay.
I think I was around 11 at the time I saw my first documentary about suspension, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I need to do that, and I'm meant to do that. And suspension was definitely what got me catapulted into just everything. I mean, I think I was 18 when I first got my first tattoo and all that. It was tattoos were cool and whatnot, but it didn't have that energetic component to it. I was just dumb at 18 and getting tattoos because I thought it was cool. And then sometime in my early 20s is when I had my first suspension, and then from there it was just
I haven't even suspended.
Really?
35. I've always wanted to, but just haven't done it. Chase, me and him used to I was going to go to his shop, he guest spots out, but I just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah.
I wanted to, but I have yet to do it.
Yeah, so you'll know when you're ready for suspension. Don't rush it, don't force it. I mean, whether you're young or you're when you're 60s, anybody of any age can suspend as long as your health is compatible with that. And anybody that I've ever known to suspend or want to suspend, there's always this interesting force that kind of comes over you, and it just feels I have to do that now. It's kind of the itch you get for a tattoo, but it just feels this big push. Yeah. And sometimes for some people it's just a matter of being at the exact right place at the exact right divine time in order for it to align for you. And you don't expect to suspend that day, but then it's offered to you and you're oh my god, it's time.
Because I was going to reach out once and try to do it at a convention. I was I just don't think that's how I want to go about doing it. Because all the people watching you and you being fresh and new doing it, I feel I want a more private, intimate suspension versus public scene.
Absolutely. And there are definitely different experiences you can have with suspension, and for some people the convention suspension is definitely it for them. It's just a difference in energy and experience. For some people, having the convention space where there's all of this external pressure to see it through, and the kind of it's like an ego boost, you know,
Yeah.
to like get up on those hooks in front of all these people, and it's like you're thrashing around and you feel super cool in that moment. But I do think that there's a lot to be had internally, like on an interpersonal level from suspension. And if you feel called to go the private route, go the private route, because it can be just so much more enlightening and awakening to like yourself and where you're at in your life and everything you've been through. It can just be much more like, not saying that convention suspension isn't powerful, but like I feel like it does. Convention suspension can distract from the inner work that can be done.
It can make you forget your own experience because you're more. It's a show,
right?
So instead of it being your experience, it's the whole group's experience.
Right.
Because they're watching you. You're basically putting on a show for them.
Exactly. It's very performative. And I do think that suspension requires a lot of trust from the team you're working with and the people who are suspending you. And, you know, unless you really know those people at the convention, it's like on a personal level, that's a lot of trust to just be handing out to somebody in front of a lot of people, you know. So, suspension at the end of the day, it is like very dangerous, and when people are doing it on a convention level, you know, you're going back to back to back to back with performance after performance after performance, and you know, unless those people are like very, very seasoned, can get a little shaky, you know. But just from an energetic perspective too, like all of my suspensions, except for a handful, have been private suspensions. And I definitely prefer that experience because, you know, I have a very interesting creature-like process when I go into that space. I do a lot of energy work in that space, and, you know, I don't always want to put that on display for a lot of people. You know, that's just space for myself and my really, really close, trusted friends, because it can get feral.
Well, if you're saying like you were young when you started like learning about all that, did you have any family members that had tattoos or piercings when you were growing up?
No, not a single one. I'm
to...
honestly the black sheep of my family. I think maybe my brother, my second oldest brother, got like an arm tattoo when he was a teenager, but he's gotten no tattoos since or anything. Yeah.
See, my family, they were military, so I grew up around tattoos and piercings, but I was always made that it wasn't like, I shouldn't do it, like it shouldn't be a thing. But now like my whole family's more tattooed than I.
Really?
But I'm the only one that went into like the heavy stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that too, because actually growing up, I grew up in Virginia Beach, and my dad was like a super hardcore metalhead. Like, I was going to shows in the Loom. Both of my brothers were in a death metal band from like, I was like 7 years old going to shows at the bars with them. And you know, in those environments, it's just like a lot of rough around the edges people, tattoos, like, you know, down at the beach is a really rough area. So tough, not rough, but it was tough, you know what I mean? So I was exposed to a lot of that growing up, but my family, surprisingly, was a very Christian, big Catholic Italian family. So
I was raised around like, one side was Christian, but they weren't church going, and my dad's side, my grandmother sung in the church choir as I was growing up and all that. And shockingly, that woman defends me. Like, I look like this and she doesn't see any different than the grandkid I was.
I love that for you.
She's used Bible verses to defend me. People like, and she loves me nonetheless. But not everyone gets sadly that.
Yeah.
But
that's beautiful. I do feel a little bit of a sense of solidarity. I have a cousin who is very heavily tattooed and is actually married to a tattoo artist that works at Ambition Tattoo. Okay. We grew up very far away from each other, and I remember seeing her early on as a teenager and seeing that she was starting to get tattooed, and I was like, whoa, okay, so like we're really the only two like femme-bodied people in the family, and we're like the only ones that have like tattoos. You know, none of the men really have a whole lot of anything going on, but it's kind of cool that just her and I
that's awesome.
are heavily tattooed.
Who was like the first person within our community that like really inspired you to like go the path that you are? Because I, on my own, like I have plenty of names and visuals I have, but I'm older than me, so some of them might be different.
That's a really interesting question. So I guess it just depends on which path we're talking about, whether that's tattoos, suspensions, piercings, performance art, because I am a interdisciplinary artist, so I dabble in the realms of performance art with suspension. I obviously love getting tattooed. Some of my pain projects are my favorite pieces, but it really just depends on like what realm you're speaking of.
Let's go with just the basics. What got you with the tattoos and piercings? Was there any one direct with that you can recall?
You know, a lot of my stuff early on was very illustrative and very just like sensory seeking.
Okay.
I was very sensory seeking when I was young and getting younger and getting tattooed. But I actually love answering this question because, and I don't mean this to sound egotistical, but I don't think I drew inspiration from anybody. I just kind of followed what I was feeling at the time. And whatever I was feeling at those times is what led me to each next experience. I never really got online and looked at what so-and-so was doing and was like, oh, that looks cool, I want to try that. Like, I didn't even know about ritual blackwork pain projects until after I had one myself. I didn't even know that that was something that people did until a group of friends was like, hey, we kind of want to do this thing. And then I was like, oh my God, that sounds crazy. I bet I could handle that. And then we did it. And then it was like maybe a couple months after my healing that I started realizing like, oh wow, people all over the world have done this. Like this is something that is not common in America. And I just did that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
With me, my drew, like, it's like a phasing memory because I was 6. And we lived in Texas because my father was in the military. And I remember it was the 90s. This Texas punk scene was very large in the 90s and where we lived. And I remember once we were at Walmart and this punk couple was there and my family was putting them down for the way they looked. And I remember just being 6, looking at them and seeing how happy they were and remembering how unhappy my parents were. And I had to draw to whatever their happiness was. I wanted a piece of that. And it was an alternative light, and I wanted that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what drew me a lot into what I've done. Because I saw that was happiness to me when I was 6. Mm-hmm. But I enjoyed it. Like, I don't regret any of becoming any of this.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
It's my own experience. There were people that influenced me to learn of what was done, because growing up in a small town in West Virginia, we didn't have people that wanted to push limits and do harder stuff. So MySpace, sadly, dating me well, showed me a lot of that. And I love that. Being me helped me out too. But it helped grow.
Yeah.
I was the only one back in my hometown that said, fuck it, let's try to stretch nostrils. Everyone thought I was fucking crazy wanting to stretch my nostrils, but here I am, 16 millimeters, over 10 years of stretching. Not punched, just straight stretching. But everybody's experience is different. And I love that you naturally grew into what you are on that side.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
When it comes to stretching too, I remember stretching the shit out of my ears way too quickly as a teenager. And it was one of those things, it was just another sensory seeking thing for me. I've always naturally been drawn to very intense experiences and intense spaces and feelings and, modification ever since I started exploring it as a young teen has just always been a sensory outlet for me.
Me, these are second. I had my ears reconstructed because I stretched way too fast when I was lesson learned. I'm
about to actually, here in a month or two, have the rest of my tissues scalpeled out. And just, instead of stretching, I'm just going to remove some of that tissue and yeah, it'll be fun.
Do you do mods and you do piercings and stuff? What was the first mod you know that you've done? Not on yourself, because I know you said you've explored and stuff like that.
Yeah. So my experience with mods has definitely mostly been around like suspension. I would say that that's like my. I guess it also depends on what we classify as mods,
yeah,
too.
It's a very loose term.
It is a very loose term. Yes. It's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of gray area with my work. Like, my work could definitely be considered mods, or it could be considered performance art, or just art in general. I do a lot of clay piercings. And I'm actually in a phase right now where I'm really trying to redirect that. Instead of it just being like, this is clay piercing, into just raw forms of art. I've become a lot more selective about the projects that I will do and want to do around that, just because I want it to be striking. You know? Yeah. I don't want it to just be another clay piercing. I want it to be something you look at and you're just like, whoa.
It's
you
art,
know,
basically.
That is how on earth, you know?
Yes.
So I've been in a place of redirecting that. My first clay piercing I did was shortly after my first suspension 6 years ago. Okay. And then, you know, ever since I started doing suspension, I was around the community facilitating suspension ever since I suspended myself. So there's been a lot of hook throwing and cheek spears and weird things like that happening. As far as actual mods go, I would say that I am in a place right now of pursuing scarification as my main interest. I can't say that I've ever really had. I think I would have been a great surgeon, let me tell you. I bet if I had like Adderall back in college time, I would have been able to become a great surgeon. But I can't say that I have ever really been the person that really wants to do like ear mods, the surgical style mods, eyeball tattoo, like injections, ink injection, things like that. I can't say that that's ever something I've really wanted to pursue because I only like to dive into the things that really ignite me and help me feel like I'm providing something for the world that it really needs.
Yeah.
And scarification specifically, I feel like it's definitely a deeper energetic experience happening there on the terms of like, I mean, my scarification pieces definitely felt like a rite of passage to me. Like, I have my tongue split. That was a heavy mod, but something about the surgical component of it and the very like, you know, just the surgical component of it didn't feel like ritual to me. And as I said, I'm very drawn to those intense ritualistic experiences because it helps me feel like I'm moving in the right path, essentially. So with scarification, every time I've done them or experienced them on myself, it's like this it's almost like this blanket of energy just kind of comes over me, and it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It feels like I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing in that moment, even though I'm literally like peeling somebody's fucking skin off. It's like, wow, like I'm really doing this and I'm helping this person by doing this, and there's just so much energy in those moments that it's transcendent. It really is transcendent. And I love body modification, but for me as a facilitator, I really only want to move in directions that feel bigger than myself energetically, that I know are really like helping somebody feel more like themselves.
You're looking for more of a spiritual feeling with it, not something that's just it's like superficial. Like you want it to be an experience.
Yes,
that's what you're looking for.
I'm in it for the experience. I've always been an experience-based person. I mean, when I had my face scar done, every tattoo that I've ever had, every mod that I've ever had, it's all an experience. I literally I just trust the artist. I go in pretty blind. I do research on my people, but and I get a vibe check on people. But like my face scar, I let him freehand draw it. I didn't even look at it before we cut it. No lidocaine. Just, it's a whole experience. The energy aspect of full surrender in those moments is unlike anything you'll ever experience, and you can just learn a lot about yourself and other people through those things. And I do feel like naturally as people, I feel like we are hardwired. A lot of us, maybe not all of us, but I would say a majority of us are hardwired to be drawn to intense experiences. I mean, you look over the course of history, all of these rites of passage, expressions through ecstatic dance, these celebrations of moving on from youth. There's all of these intense experiences that we used to experience culturally that have died. And I feel like we don't have outlets for those experiences anymore. So when I meet people who are into modification, I just have these moments of like, yeah, you've figured out a healthy outlet for you to experience intensity in a way that helps propel you forward. And I always just feel like mods should always, if you're doing mods, it should be something that is helping propel you forward. And love yourself, and love the environment and the communities you are with.
No, I get that. Like, a lot of the people I've found and became friends, and I see as family, like, through this community is, like, amazing. Like, it's the love, I would say, that I was looking for in God, the happiness and shit, out of this.
I relate to that so much. Yeah, especially growing up Christian, you know, one side of my family was Catholic, one side was Baptist, and I was always preached the love of God on one side and then the fear of God on the other side. And I never truly knew what love was. And I tell my friends up in Detroit, I do suspension with my best lover friends ever up in Detroit. Unity Suspensions, our group. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, man, I truly didn't know what love actually was until I met you guys. And it was the situation. So my leg was a pain ritual project, and there was 6 hooks involved. There was 4.5 hours of tattooing with a 100 mag tattoo gun. There was scarification. There was an ink rubbing. It was a whole fucking day. It was the second day. We had spent 24 hours together. And I let them do that shit to me. And it was just one of those things where, you know how I was saying with suspension, it's like all of those elements just kind of fall into place. You feel like you're at the right place at the right time for something to happen. You feel like you need it. And then you surrender to that moment. And then the love that comes on the other side of trusting your environment and trusting yourself to get through those moments is uncomparable to a lot of things you will experience in this world.
That's amazing. I've never experienced anything on that level. It's not what I'm searching for, but it's amazing that it is what you're searching for, and it's what you can find through this. Because a lot of people think they look in on us, that's all they're doing, and they see us mutilating ourselves to them. But each one of us are finding our own reason for it. Yours is your own experiences, your own spirituality with it. Others could just be for the aesthetic reasoning behind it, which is great. Because for me, it's more of how I view myself. I didn't care for me without this stuff. When I have ever taken them out or tried to hide them, I don't like that version of me anymore. This is how I see myself, and I've always. And it's amazing. Each one of us sees it differently. Mm-hmm. But it's not, at the end of the day, mutilation.
It's really not. And I think that there are a lot of intersections between like your physical appearance and expression. And I have this conversation all the time of how like the more modded people get, the more intersection there is with like gender fluidity and modification. You know, the more modded you become, the more creature you become. And it's like through modification, we're able to reclaim parts of ourselves that we haven't otherwise been able to access or understand before. And when people look in on people who have dove into the mod world and have chosen to have these experiences and have these aesthetics, it makes me wonder, like, what parts of themselves are they rejecting that they're feeling so much fear and so much hatred in that moment? Because we're all mirrors of one another, and that's that's a huge reason from the aesthetic standpoint why I love having modifications, is because I know that simply by existing in this world, just going out to the gas station, going out to Target, somebody's going to see me. Simply with how I look. They're going to look at me. They're going to feel emotions. They're going to feel something. Their wheels are going to turn. Even if it's a negative emotion, it's sparking something in them. Sparking something that's dormant. Something that's died. Something they're not paying attention to. And simply by existing in this world, I'm able to help people break free of these, like, this blind life that society has created, you know? I don't care if people look at me hatefully. I love myself so much, and I love all of the experiences I've had, and I know that modification helps you reclaim yourself. Yeah. And I feel like people who see modification and get freaked out have not done any reclamation work of their own. Or might not have. I can't say that they haven't, but that narrow-mindedness speaks for itself.
I'll say that's what you like me seeing those punks when I was 6 and seeing their happiness, and like people that aren't happy or seeing someone that is, and then putting them down for their unhappiness, basically. And then me claiming my own through this. And it was a struggle because I grew up Baptist too. Mm-hmm. Pentecostal on one side, which is even worse. And basically made out to be like I shouldn't exist anymore, basically, over this, and it sucks. And then you explore through this our community. I love because not only are we accepting due to everyone's own self-visualization that they want, but sexuality too. Like it's a very open community, and you're accepted of all, and it's what you're, like I said, your own happiness, your own welcoming community, because you walk up and they think we look the way we do, but we're fucking open arms, ready to greet anyone.
Yeah. When you've seen the things that can happen in the WOD world, you have basically seen it all at that point. It's like, why am I going to judge you for whatever you've done to your face right now? Like, you're beautiful. Keep doing what you're doing. You know, like, everybody's on their own journey. Who am I to judge what somebody wants to do to their body? It's not my body. Mm-hmm. It's not my life. It's not my experience. Yeah. But I will be very curious and probably very enamored and want to know, like, how'd you get there? Exactly. Tell me your story, you know?
That's what this is for.
Yeah.
Exactly. Tell your story.
Yeah.
But, go on, Laura. What is, you're more, I know, primal. You go for the experience, but do you have anything else planned for your own body, your own aesthetic that you're looking to experience eventually?
Oh yeah. It's an ongoing project. I don't think my life with modification or any of it will ever stop. I love layering tattoos. I love suspension. I mean, I will surgically get scar piles from suspension hooks removed before I ever stop suspending. You know what I mean? Like, that is, I love it. Definitely more scarification in the works. If you want me to talk about, like, my whole kind of body map.
You can. Yeah, okay. We can go over it.
Sure. So right now I'm working on a full front torso blackwork project with Lucian Gray based out of Asheville. He's doing a cover-up work of all of this filigree stuff that I have going on. I actually have a session in, I think, 2 weeks to do my full neck. Okay. Blast overs. I am hoping at some point I can have everything on my leg worked over with black work. I would love for Java Diamblas to do it. It's based in Brazil. I have a full back piece right now that I would also love to get blasted over. There's a few artists over in Germany that I would love to work with that do abstract work. And as of right now, I have I have pretty much everywhere tattooed except for the visible areas that you see now. So like my right arm and my left leg are completely untouched. And I think I'm going to do scarification on my entire left leg all on my own. So I think my left leg is all mine in a scalpel. So I'm really looking forward to watching that progress over the years.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll definitely be doing some scarification on my chest, and all the black work that me and Lucy do, we're going to go in and cut on as well. I have a stomach scarification
I love
piece planned.
stars on black work.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
It's good. It's
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, but I don't think I'm never really like in a rush with my mods because once again, it's that experience. Everything aligns exactly when it's meant to, and I trust that process. I have a vision, but I don't want to stop getting modded anytime soon, and I don't want to rush through it because what happens
When you get to the end.
when you get to the
More
end?
experience to have.
Or what happens when you go so hard you burn out? You know, it's a very special place in my heart, and it's definitely a lifestyle for me, and I will just continually pursue that, whether it's on myself or facilitating experiences for other people.
That's nice. I look forward to being able to keep following you and see what all you've become in the years.
Thanks! I'm excited.
Yes. With us going to probably try to finish up,
Yeah.
is there anywhere people can try to find you and follow you? on
Yeah, I have a lot of Instagram pages.
Instagram? Follow us. Yes.
I'm piercing under @piercings by Coral. And then my performance art page, suspension page, and mod page is under Coral_Carnival.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the studio name?
I am currently working over at Everyday Tattoos in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay. Give them a follow. They would love to have your love. I appreciate you doing this with me and allowing me to talk to you. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
You're an amazing human.
Thank you
It's
so
great.
much. It's been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. All right. Till next time, we'll see you then. Subscribe and like. Thanks, guys.